The nursery should be a place of innocence, smelling of baby powder, fresh laundry, and the soft, milky scent of new life. Instead, in this house, it smells of secrets and the sharp, metallic tang of my daughter-in-law's perfume, a scent that lingers in the air like a poisonous fog long after she has left the room. I am Thomas. I am 72 years old and legally blind in my left eye, a parting gift from a mild stroke 3 years ago. My son, Daniel, thinks I am confused. He looks at me with a mixture of pity and exhaustion, seeing only a shuffling old man who forgets where he put his glasses. His wife, Jessica, tells everyone I am declining rapidly, shaking her head with performative sorrow at church, at the grocery store, and to the neighbors over the backyard fence. They don't know that my hearing is as sharp as a razor. They don't know that when the vision fades in one eye, the world becomes a symphony of sounds that most people ignore. I hear the floorboards settle. I hear the whisper of a text message being sent at midnight. I hear everything that happens when they think the old man is asleep. I live in the guest room downstairs, a room that used to be my study before I signed the deed over to Daniel for tax purposes 2 years ago. It was the biggest mistake of my life, a signature inked in trust that sealed my fate as a prisoner. Now I am a guest in my own history, surrounded by boxes of things I am no longer allowed to display. Jessica treats me like a stain on the carpet, something unsightly that she can't quite scrub away. She moves my cane a few inches to the left so I stumble when I reach for it. She forgets to pick up my blood pressure prescriptions until I am dizzy and weak. She whispers to Daniel late at night, her voice a serpent in his ear, telling him that I am becoming dangerous around their newborn daughter, Mia. "He's unstable, Dan," I heard her say last week, through the thin drywall that separates my room from the kitchen. "He dropped a glass in the sink today, shattered it everywhere. What if he drops Mia? What if he falls on her? We can't risk it. We need to put him in a home." The Elm Street facility is a warehouse for the dying. I know it. She knows it. It is a place where they sedate you to keep you quiet and wait for your heart to stop so they can bill the state for the burial. But the nursery is where the truth lives. Jessica spends hours in there with Mia, or so Daniel thinks.
When Daniel is at work, pulling double shifts to pay for the lifestyle Jessica demands, she retreats to that room. I hear her on the phone. I hear her talking to her friends. I hear the tone of her voice change from the saccharine, high-pitched sweetness she uses with Daniel to a cold, hard dissatisfaction. I hear her complain about the mortgage. I hear her complain about Daniel's lack of ambition. I hear her complain that I am taking too long to die. I bought Mia a gift for her 6-month milestone. It was a teddy bear. Not just any bear, a high-end, custom-made bear with soft brown fur and a red ribbon tied around its neck. But the real gift was hidden inside the black plastic button of its nose. It is a high-definition nanny cam, motion-activated, with a 72-hour loop recording to an SD card tucked into the battery pack in its back. I didn't buy it to spy on the baby. I bought it because I suspected the nanny they hired last month was stealing the silver teaspoons my late wife collected. I wanted to catch a petty thief. I never expected the thief to be the mother. I sat in my darkened room, the heavy curtains drawn against the afternoon sun, listening to the floorboards creak above me. It was the rhythmic pacing of someone on a phone call. I clutched the remote to the monitor screen I had hidden inside my hollowed-out family Bible on the nightstand. It is a terrifying thing to realize that the monsters aren't under your bed. They are sleeping in the master bedroom, eating at your table, and kissing your son goodnight. If you have ever felt the cold chill of being gaslighted in your own home, or if you suspect that the people smiling at you are plotting your removal like a piece of old furniture, take a moment to subscribe, because what that bear recorded is about to turn this house into a courtroom, and I want you to be my jury. The incident that broke me, the moment that turned my suspicion into a cold, hard weapon, happened on a Tuesday. Daniel was at work. The house was quiet.
save for the hum of the refrigerator. I was sitting in the kitchen at the small breakfast table, nursing a cup of lukewarm tea. My hands were shaking slightly, not from age, but from the residual effects of the vitamins Jessica insisted I take with breakfast. I had started cheeking them 2 days ago, spitting them into the toilet when she wasn't looking, and my mind was already clearing. The fog was lifting, revealing the sharp edges of my reality. Jessica walked in.
She was wearing her workout clothes, tight leggings and a designer top, though she never seemed to sweat. She didn't see me at first. She was pacing, her phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and urgent. "The lawyer said the competency hearing is next week," she said into her cell. She paused, listening. "Yeah, I know. I've been mixing the sedatives into his coffee like you said. Double dose in the mornings. He's slurring his words by dinner. He knocked over a lamp yesterday because he was so dizzy." My heart hammered against my ribs. A vegetable. That was the plan, to chemically lobotomize me just enough to strip me of my rights. "We'll have power of attorney by Friday," she continued, grabbing a bottle of water from the fridge. "And the house will be on the market by Monday. I already have a realtor lined up." She turned around, the water bottle halfway to her mouth. She saw me. For a second she froze. Her eyes went wide, a flicker of genuine panic crossing her face. She looked at the phone in her hand, then at me. She did a quick calculation, assessing how much I had heard, assessing my mental state. Then the mask slid back into place. A smile curled on her lips, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. It was a terrifying transformation, instant and predatory. "Oh, Dad," she cooed, hanging up the phone without saying goodbye. "You startled me. I didn't know you were up from your nap. Did you hear that? I was just talking about a surprise party for Daniel. You look so tired." "I'm fine, Jessica," I said. My voice was raspy, but I forced it to be steady. "Your tea looks cold," she said, walking over to the counter. "Here, let me make you a fresh coffee. You need your energy." She moved to the coffee maker. I watched her back. I saw her hand dip into a small, unmarked jar. I saw the quick, practiced motion of her wrist as she tapped a white powder into the mug before pouring the dark liquid over it. She stirred it. Clink, clink, clink. The spoon hitting the ceramic sounded like a bell tolling. She turned around and placed the mug in front of me. The steam rose up, smelling of roast and hazelnut. "Drink up, Dad," she said, patting my shoulder. Her hand felt heavy, like a claw. I looked at the coffee. I looked at the white foam on top. I looked at the woman who had promised to love and cherish my son. "No, thank you, Jessica," I said. I pushed the mug away. My stomach is a bit unsettled. Her eyes narrowed.
For a brief second, the venom showed through. "You need to drink it, Thomas." I said no, I said. I stood up, gripping the edge of the table. I walked past her. I felt her eyes boring into my back. I felt the tension radiating off her like heat from a fire. I retreated to my room and closed the door. I locked it, though the lock was flimsy and wouldn't stop anyone determined to get in. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the driveway through the sheer curtains. I waited. 30 minutes later, I saw Jessica's car back out of the driveway. The moment the car disappeared around the corner, I moved. I climbed the stairs to the nursery. It was a slow, painful ascent. My knees ached, and my breath came in short gasps, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I hadn't been upstairs in months. Jessica had installed a baby gate that she said was for Mia, but I knew it was to keep me out. I fumbled with the latch, my fingers trembling, until it clicked open. I walked into the nursery. It was silent. Mia was at daycare. The room was perfectly arranged, a showroom of expensive furniture, paid for by the account I had set up for Daniel's future. I went to the crib. The bear was there, sentinel in the corner, its glass eyes reflecting the afternoon light. It looked innocent. It looked like love. I picked it up. My hand shook as I opened the Velcro seam in the back. I popped the battery back out. I swapped the SD card for a fresh one I had kept in my pocket. I shoved the back in, smoothed the fur, and placed the bear back exactly as I had found it, angling the nose toward the center of the room. I took the recorded card and hurried back downstairs. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot. I felt like a burglar in the house I had paid for with 40 years of sweat and labor. I made it to my room. I locked the door again. I pulled my old laptop from under the bed, the one Jessica thought was broken because the screen flickered. I inserted the SD card. I put on my headphones, pressing the cups tight against my ears to seal out the world. The footage started. It
It showed the nursery. The timestamp was from yesterday afternoon, 2 p.m. Jessica walked in. She wasn't alone. A man followed her. It wasn't Daniel. It was the man she introduced as her personal trainer, a muscular man named Greg, who charged Daniel $200 an hour for sessions he never attended. They weren't exercising.
They were walking around the room, holding a large roll of paper, blueprints. "We knocked down this wall," the man said, gesturing around the room. His voice was clear on the recording. "Open up the master suite. Once the old man is in the home and Dan sells the place, we take the cash and move to Florida." Jessica laughed. It was a sound that chilled my blood. "Dan does what I tell him. He's pathetic. He actually thinks I love this dusty old house." Greg asked, leaning against the crib, my granddaughter's crib. "He'll be dead in a year once he's in the facility," Jessica said, waving her hand dismissively. I looked up the mortality rates for Elm Street. They are sky high. Infection, neglect, nature will take its course. I watched them. I watched her lean into him. I watched them kiss, right there in the sanctity of my grandchild's room. I watched them laugh as they picked up a framed photo of me holding Mia from the dresser. Jessica mimicked my stroke-droop face, and Greg laughed, tossing the photo face down on the changing table. I paused the video. I sat back, the headphones heavy on my ears. My heart was breaking, shattering into 1,000 jagged pieces. It wasn't breaking for myself. I was old. I had lived a full life. It was breaking for my son. He was sleeping next to a viper. He was working himself into an early grave to support a woman who was actively plotting to destroy him. He was raising a child with a woman who viewed his father as an expiration date on a check. I took the headphones off. The silence of the room was deafening. I looked at my reflection in the dark computer screen. I saw the gray hair. I saw the drooping eye. I saw the wrinkles of a man who had worked hard and loved deeply. But I didn't see a victim. I wasn't a vegetable. I wasn't confused. I was a man who had built a logistics business from a single truck to a fleet of 50. I knew how to spot a bad deal. I knew how to handle a hostile takeover. And I knew exactly how to dismantle a thief. I reached for my phone. I dialed a number I hadn't called in 2 years. "Henderson," I whispered when the line connected. "It's Thomas. Don't ask me how I am," my old lawyer asked, his voice surprised. I thought, "That's what they want you to think," I said, my voice gaining strength with every word. "I need you to get the papers ready, the revocable trust, the eviction notices." "I need you to rent a high-definition projector," I said, looking at the SD card sitting in my laptop, "and a very large screen. I'm planning to show a home movie," I said. "Get everything ready." The bass from the rented speakers thumps against the floorboards above my head, a rhythmic, artificial heartbeat that shakes the dust from the ceiling fixtures. The surprise party Jessica had lied about on the phone turned out to be real, but it wasn't a surprise for me, and it certainly wasn't for Daniel. It was for her. It was her 35th birthday, a milestone she felt entitled to celebrate with the pageantry of a royal coronation. She had forced Daniel to invite half the neighborhood, his boss from the logistics firm, and her entire extended family, people who looked at my son with veiled contempt while drinking the champagne bought with his overtime wages. The backyard of the house I built brick by brick was now decked out in string lights and expensive catering stations, filled with strangers laughing, eating, and celebrating the woman who was actively plotting to destroy the very man pouring their drinks. I was told to stay in my room. "Dad isn't feeling well," I heard Jessica tell the first wave of guests through the thin drywall. Her voice was pitched perfectly to convey the burden of a saintly caregiver. "He's having one of his episodes. He gets so agitated with noise. It's best if he rests." I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the lies seep through the cracks in the door. I wasn't resting. I was preparing for war. I stood up and walked to the closet. I pushed aside the comfortable cardigans and elastic-laced trousers she liked to see me in, clothes that signaled defeat. I reached to the back, pulling out the garment bag I hadn't unzipped since my wife's funeral 3 years ago. It was a charcoal wool 3-piece suit, tailored in London during better years. It smelled faintly of cedar and memory. I put it on slowly. My fingers trembled slightly with the buttons, not from weakness,
but from a cold, simmering rage that focused my mind like a laser. I tightened my tie. I brushed my thinning hair back. I put on my watch. I checked my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me wasn't the vegetable Jessica described to her lover. He wasn't the confused old man Daniel pitied. He was Thomas Vance, founder of Vance Logistics, a man who had stared down union strikes and corporate raiders. I didn't look frail. I looked dangerous.
A soft knock came at the side door that led to the garden path, the servants' entrance Jessica usually made me use. I opened it. Mr. Henderson stood there, clutching his briefcase against his chest like a shield. He was 70 years old, my attorney for 4 decades, and the only man I trusted to hold the grenade I was about to throw. He had slipped in while the caterers were loading in the ice sculptures. "You're late, Robert," I said, stepping aside to let him in. "The security is tighter than a bank vault out there," Henderson muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked at me, taking in the suit, the posture, the clarity in my good eye. "Good God, Thomas. I'm firing someone," I said grimly. Henderson tapped his briefcase. The eviction notice, the revocation of the power of attorney, the restraining order. He paused, looking at me with genuine concern. "Are you sure about this, Thomas? We could do this quietly. We could file on Monday. Doing this tonight, in front of his boss, his friends?" I looked out the window at the fairy lights twinkling in the twilight. I saw Daniel running back and forth with a tray of appetizers, serving his wife's guests like a hired waiter in his own home. "The truth doesn't destroy, Robert," I said. "It cleanses. It burns down the rot so something new can grow. What destroys is the lie. If I let this go until Monday, he spends 2 more nights sleeping next to a woman who wants him dead." "Fair enough," Henderson said. He straightened his tie. We waited. We stood in the dark guest room, listening to the party swell. The music shifted from upbeat pop to something slower, more sentimental. I heard the clinking of a spoon against a glass. The chatter died down. "Speech!" someone shouted. "Sssss," another voice urged. That was my cue. I unlocked the door to my room. I walked into the kitchen. It was empty. Everyone was outside. Through the French doors, I could see the patio bathed in the warm glow of the lights. Daniel stood on a makeshift stage near the DJ booth, holding a microphone. Jessica stood next to him, wearing a shimmering silver dress, looking every inch the victorious queen. She held a glass of champagne, beaming at the crowd, soaking in the adoration she craved like oxygen. "To my beautiful wife," Daniel began, his voice trembling with emotion. "Jessica, you are the light of this home. I know I work a lot. I know I'm not always around, but I do it for you. You hold us all together."
"You take such good care of Mia." I flinched. The lie felt physical, a slap across the face. "It's not easy taking care of an aging parent," Daniel continued, looking down at his shoes. "But you do it with such grace. I don't know what I'd do without you." "That's enough," I whispered to myself. I pushed open the French doors. I walked out onto the patio. The cane I usually leaned on was in my left hand, but I wasn't using it for support. I was carrying it like a scepter. I stepped into the circle of light. The crowd went silent. It started at the back and rippled forward, a wave of hush as people noticed the man who was supposed to be bedridden, standing tall in a 3-piece suit. Daniel stopped speaking. He looked at me, blinking in confusion. "What?" he asked, the microphone amplifying his uncertainty. He stepped down from the stage. "Dad, what are you doing? You should be in bed. You know you get confused with crowds. The noise." "I'm not confused, Daniel," I said. My voice projected clearly across the yard, untrained but powerful, cutting through the humid night air without the need for a microphone. "I'm clearer than I've been in years." Jessica rushed over. Her eyes were wide with panic, darting between me and the guests. She forced a tight, terrified smile. "Okay, Dad," she chirped, her voice high and brittle. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my bicep through the wool of my suit. "Okay, Dad, let's get you inside. You're having an episode. You're embarrassing us." She pulled. I didn't move. I was an oak tree rooted in the concrete. I looked down at her hand on my arm. "Don't touch me," I said. The venom in my voice made her recoil as if she had touched a hot stove. "Dad, please," Daniel pleaded, looking around at his boss, at the neighbors. "Let's just go inside." "We are talking about it now," I said. I nodded to the side of the stage. Mr. Henderson stepped out from the shadows. He walked straight to the DJ booth. The DJ, a young kid with bleached hair who looked terrified by the sudden tension, tried to block him.
Hey man, you can't be back here, the kid stammered. Play it, Henderson commanded, slamming the thumb drive onto the mixing board. Or you will be subpoenaed as an accessory to conspiracy to commit murder and elder abuse. The kid looked at Henderson's suit, then at the thumb drive. He made the smart choice. He plugged it in. The music stopped with a jarring scratch. The crowd murmured, an uneasy, shifting sound.
The large projection screen that had been playing a slideshow of Jessica's filtered selfies flickered black. "Jessica!" screamed, realizing what was happening. She lunged toward the booth. "Cut it off! He's senile! It's probably nonsense!" Then the nursery appeared on the giant screen. It was high definition, crystal clear. The night vision mode gave everything a ghostly green tint, but the faces were unmistakable. The audio, captured by the high-end microphone in the bear's nose, boomed over the expensive backyard speakers, louder than the music had been. Jessica's voice filled the yard. "He's slurring his words by dinner. The judge will see a vegetable." The crowd gasped. It was a collective intake of breath that sucked the oxygen out of the garden. Daniel froze. His champagne glass was halfway to his mouth. He lowered it slowly, his eyes glued to the screen. On screen, Jessica laughed. It was a cruel, mocking sound that echoed off the neighbors' houses. "Dan is pathetic. He actually thinks I love this dusty old house. And the old man, he'll be dead in a year once he's in the facility." The video cut. It showed the timestamp. Yesterday, 2:15 p.m. The man, Greg, the personal trainer, walked into the frame. The crowd watched as my daughter-in-law embraced him. They watched the intimate, lingering kiss in the center of the room where my granddaughter slept. They watched them looking at the blueprints. They heard the detailed plan to drug my coffee, to sell the house, to take the money and run to Florida. "We knocked down this wall," Greg's voice boomed. In the backyard, the silence was absolute. It was a vacuum. No one moved. No one drank. Even the crickets seemed to have stopped chirping. Jessica stood frozen in the center of the patio. Her face was pale white in the glow of the fairy lights, stripping away all the glamour, leaving only the fear. She looked at the screen, then at the stunned guests, and finally, she looked at Daniel. Daniel stood like a statue. He slowly opened his hand. The champagne glass fell. It hit the patio stones and shattered, the sound ringing out like a gunshot. He turned to his wife. He looked like a man who had been shot in the gut, bleeding out invisibly. "Daniel," he whispered. His voice cracked. "You've been drugging him. You've been cheating on me." She shrieked. She snapped out of her trance, lunging for the projector cord. "It's a deep fake. He made it. He's crazy. He's been using AI."
You know he used to work with computers. Daniel, look at me. It's time-stamped, Jessica, I said calmly. My voice was the only steady thing in the chaos. And I have the toxicology report from Dr. Evans this morning, confirming the sedatives in my blood. I have the receipts from the pharmacy where you bought the pills with cash. I pulled the folded papers from my breast pocket and held them up. Daniel looked at me. Tears streamed down his face, cutting tracks through the shock. He choked out. "I didn't know." "I know, son," I said gently. I walked over to him. I put my hand on his shoulder. "But you know now." Jessica saw the shift. She saw the wall of support closing around Daniel. She turned to run, heading for the kitchen door, her silver heels clicking frantically on the stone. 2 police officers, summoned by Henderson 10 minutes ago, stepped out from the kitchen shadows, blocking her path. "We have a warrant for your arrest," the taller officer said, pulling out handcuffs. She screamed. She tried to fight, swinging her arms, her carefully styled hair coming loose. "This is my house. You can't touch me. Daniel, tell them!" Daniel turned his back on her. He looked at me. She screamed as they cuffed her. The sound was primal and ugly. She cursed me. She cursed Daniel. She cursed the house. As they dragged her away through the side gate, past the silent, staring guests, she looked like a demon being exorcised. The guests stood in stunned silence, witnessing the collapse of her carefully curated lie. They looked at their drinks, suddenly ashamed to be holding them. One by one, they set their glasses down on the tables and walked away, slipping out into the night without a word. Daniel walked over to me. He looked at the empty screen, then at the broken glass on the floor. He collapsed into my arms, sobbing like a child. He was a grown man, heavy and strong. But in that moment, he was 5 years old again. I held him. I let him cry. I held him up until he could stand on his own. "It's over," I whispered into his ear. "We're safe." That night, after the police left, after Henderson had filed the paperwork, and after the last caterer had packed up the uneaten food, the house was quiet. I sat in the nursery. The moonlight filtered through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor.
Daniel sat in the rocking chair, holding sleeping Mia against his chest. He was rocking slowly, staring at nothing. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said again.
It was the 100th time he had said it. I should have seen it. I should have listened to you. I let her... Stop apologizing, I said. I stood up and walked over to him. I rested my hand on Mia's soft head. You were in love, Daniel. Love makes us blind. I feel so stupid, he whispered. Just promise me one thing, I said. Anything, he replied. Never let anyone tell you that your father is weak, I said. I walked over to the shelf. I picked up the teddy bear. It felt heavy in my hand, burdened with the weight of the truth it had carried. We might be old, I said, looking at the button nose that had saved our lives. I placed the bear back on the shelf, angling it toward the door. Its glass eyes glinted in the moonlight, the silent guardian that would never sleep again.